Congratulations. After months of applying for jobs, you have finally landed an interview. But now what? In the video today, we're going to talk about the 11 most commonly asked interview questions and how you need to respond to them to give yourself the best shot of landing the job of your dreams. And the very last one might surprise you as being the one that most candidates mess up. Let's get into it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 10 of the Recruiting Heroes Show. I am your host, Colin Whittington, the CEO and founder of Recruiting Heroes, LLC. I'm also the author of the best-selling book, Beyond the Thin Blue Line, which is your ultimate guide for your transition from law enforcement to the private sector. So if you haven't checked out this book yet, I'll put the link below, so do check that out. Today, we're diving into the topic of interviewing, and I'm going to be covering the 11 most common interview questions that I have seen as the owner of a national employment agency who has worked with some of the largest companies on earth and seen their hiring practices and what they look for in candidates and exactly what they're looking for when they're interviewing applicants for their open positions. If you are a candidate who has been applying and not landing any interviews, there's a decent chance that your resume might need some work. So what I'm offering today is our free Heroes Job Search Guide, which you can find on our website at recruitingheroesllc.com. Go to the candidate services page, scroll all the way down. And there are free downloads, which include a resume, our Heroes Job Search Guide, which tells you how to write a resume, how to optimize your LinkedIn, and basically how to do everything to get you to the interview phase. So if you haven't landed an interview, definitely check out this free resource. I think it could be a huge help for you. But let's go ahead and get started on this topic of interviewing. As always, please do like and subscribe this channel. It helps me grow. It helps me reach more law enforcement officers, more veterans, and other first responders as well. So if you can like and subscribe, I would really appreciate it. All right, let's get started on the 11 most common interview questions. And again, number 11 will surprise you as the one that is most oftenly messed up by candidates as you're interviewing for jobs. So the first one, the one you probably already know, is tell me about yourself. This question is asked at almost every interview I've ever been taking a part in, as well as ones my candidates have participated in. Almost always the very first question is tell me about yourself. And this is a question that a lot of candidates kind of treat as a throwaway question. They don't really think it really matters, and they just kind of give a pretty generic and lengthy and unorganized answer. And this is honestly one of the most important questions if utilized correctly. But you have to treat it as an important question and one where you can truly highlight how your skills and your background can be the perfect fit for this job. I'll say it numerous times throughout this video, but everything you say during an interview should be driving home the point that you are the best candidate for the job that you're applying for and that you're interviewing for. And starting off with this question, you want to drive that point home. This question should really be answered in about 3 to maximum 5 minutes. A lot of candidates go way too long and they start off talking about where they were born and their favorite color and what they played sports-wise growing up. Those things might matter to you and your family. The recruiter, the hiring manager does not care. You want to focus on what makes you a great fit for this role. So what I recommend is start off by talking about your career and focusing on your current or most recent role first, the experiences you've gained in those roles or that role, and how it relates to this position and why you think you're a good fit for the role that you're interviewing for. So again, highlight your experience, highlight the skills you've gained, and then tie it all together when you talk about how those experiences and those skills relate to the job you're interviewing for and why that makes you a great fit for the role. So that's question 1. Diving into question number 2, why do you want to work for this company? This is another really important question, and this is one a lot of candidates, again, mess up because candidates they're stressed. They're applying for a lot of jobs, they're interviewing quite a bit, and they might even forget who they're interviewing with. You'll be amazed how many times I've asked somebody, hey, so what can you tell me about this company? And they don't tell me anything. They can't say a thing. Some of them can't even tell me what that company's name is. All right, don't let that be you. This is an amazing question that you can use to highlight how much you care about this process and how much you really value this company and also the recruiter's time. So what you want to do ahead of time is do research on this company. What do they stand for? What is their mission? What exactly is the job that you're interviewing for? And why do you want to work for that specific company and in that specific role? So you want to highlight what you've done to prepare for the interview by talking about the things you saw on their social media pages, on their website, on other news articles about the company, and then bring it home again and say why you think your experience and your skill set would add to this company and drive it forward. Because again, that's what the company cares about. Who can they bring on that's going to make them even better? You shouldn't be going there to have to keep the status quo. You should be going there to make the company better. So make that part of your answer. All right, question 3. Describe a challenging situation and how you handled it. So this is one of the behavioral questions you're very likely to see. Tell me about a difficult experience and what did you do to handle it? And what I see here with candidates is a lot of them have a very disorganized answer. Well, they'll start mentioning the problem, then they'll talk about what happened, and they'll talk about what they did, and it's really back and forth and unorganized. What I recommend for any behavioral question, but especially this type of ones, use the STAR method. And STAR stands for situation, task, action, and finally the result. So it's a great way to structure your response to that question. You start off by talking about the situation that you found yourself in. What was going on? Maybe you had a difficult a coworker or supervisor or subordinate that was causing you problems. Then for T, which is task, you want to talk about what you were tasked to do. What was your objective to fix this problem? Then for A, which is action, what action did you take? What did you do, you specifically, or what did you and your team do collaboratively, do to try to address the situation? So what exact steps did you take? And be very specific. Don't be vague with your answer. Being specific is key in this answer. And then finally, bring it all home with the result and talk about how what your actions were led to. What exactly were you able to achieve with the actions that you took? And then hopefully the results can be a very positive one. And then at the end, add in a line or two about how you can use that experience to further help you in this role that you're interviewing for. Again, tie it back to the company and tie it back to the role that you're interviewing for. Question 4. What are your strengths? And this is one that you're always asked quite a bit, and some people really struggle talking about themselves, especially when it comes to talking about the positives. What are the good things about it? What you want to do, again, I'll say 1,000 more times probably, you want to tie it back to the job you're applying for and the company you're interviewing with. So your strengths shouldn't be, oh, I'm a wonderful soccer player, or I love to draw, or whatever else it is. What you want to talk about is the strengths as they relate to the job. So if it's a job in marketing or if it's a job in recruiting, you can talk about one of my strengths is public speaking. I'm very good at speaking in front of crowds. I'm very good at building rapport with people. And these are all skills that are very important in marketing or recruiting. So think about the job you're applying for and think about what skills are important for that job and see which of those are things that you're good at and try to highlight those when you're answering that question. Question 5, you know it's coming. It's the exact opposite. What are your weaknesses? This is a challenging question for a lot of candidates because it's hard to say what exactly is a weakness without making yourself seem like you're going to cause problems to the organization. This is also a question where you get a lot of candidates give the very cliche answer of, I care too much or I work too hard. Don't give that answer. Recruiters have heard it all, and it's just not believable. If you really have no actual weakness or you don't think you do, that's a troubling sign to a lot of recruiters. So think about a weakness that you've experienced in your career. But what you want to do is not just mention the weakness. You want to talk about how it has been a weakness for you, but the steps you've taken to turn that extreme weakness into an area of better strength. So it may not be an absolute strength yet, but it's something that you're working towards. And then you also want to address how that weakness is not something that's going to hold you back in this position and how you intend to continue working at it and striving to be better in that position. All right, number 6, why are you leaving your current job? That's definitely a question you're going to receive from a lot of companies because they want to know why you're leaving. If you're currently unemployed, this probably won't relate to you. They might ask you why you're currently unemployed, so have an answer for that as well. But when answering why you're leaving your current job, it's important to be honest, but at the same time, also be respectful of your current employer. Some people think that if they go in there and talk about how terrible their current job is, that the company will believe that they're really looking to go elsewhere. But in reality, you're probably going to turn the recruiter off when you start bashing your current organization, because what's going to keep you from doing the same thing about this company? So maybe talk about some of the weaknesses that are happening in that organization and why you think you'd be better suited somewhere else. If you're retiring, that's a great answer as well. So say I'm retiring from law enforcement. I'm ready for the next phase of my life. I've learned a lot, but now it's time to enter the private sector. That's a great answer as well. But be honest about the things that were maybe not quite as good in that organization, but then also have a response about what you would have tried to do or what you would try to do to try to improve that weakness as well. So that's a great way to answer that question. Number 7, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And the time frame may be different. It might be 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, who knows? What you want to do again is use this to show off the research you've done about the organization. And ideally, your answer should include the organization, because if your answer is, well, in 5 years, I hope to be working for a totally different company, that's probably not going to suit you very well in that interview. So look at the company and look at the internal growth opportunities and mention that in the answer. Say, I see that this company has phenomenal internal promotional processes, and I would love, get in here, get my feet wet, really gain experience, and then slowly start going up the ranks and becoming a higher leader in this organization to further drive the mission of the company, whatever the company's name is. So combine your passions as well as the company's mission and objectives into one answer to say where you see yourself in that time frame. Number 8, share an example of when you demonstrated leadership. A lot of companies want to have people that are leaders. Even if the role that you're being hired for, interviewing for, isn't a leadership role, they still want to see somebody that has initiative and can take on duties themselves without having their hand held. And that's a big thing in the private sector. In law enforcement, it's very structured and you have a very strict chain of command, and anything you do needs to be approved. So you really don't have to do too much individual thinking. It's kind of a machine that works all in one. In the private sector, they want you to be able to think on your feet and make decisions on your own. So having the ability to be a leader, even if you have no subordinates, is super important. This is another great one to use the STAR method on. So again, the situation, the task, the actual result, where you can highlight times where you were a leader in your previous job or current job, and what you've done since then to continue that leadership quality. So use the STAR method for that question as well. Number 9, how do you handle pressure? Another fantastic example. Again, you can use a STAR method here once again. You can talk about a very specific example, or you can be a little bit more vague and talk about how you handle pressure in general. If you're a law enforcement officer, which you probably are since you're listening to this channel, or a military veteran, you can really highlight how you handle pressure, because what job has more pressure than being a cop in America or being in the United States military? Probably very few. So talk about the calls for service you went on that were super high stress, and how you managed to stay calm in life and death situations, and how if you can stay calm in those type of situations, you'll handle pressure in the private sector without any problems. And that's a great way to tie in your law enforcement background and kind of impress the recruiter as well when they hear about the stories of what you've gone through. Obviously, don't get too graphic or too in detail about specific cases, but talking about some of the horrible things that you've seen or had to do, or the cases that you've investigated being a little bit more general, I think it's a great way to highlight just how complex and dangerous this career field can be, and how you absolutely have learned to handle pressure through that experience. All right, number 10, getting down towards the end. Tell me about a time that you failed. This is similar to the weakness question, which can be really hard to answer because people are worried that if they talk about a time they messed up, that it will look negatively. We are human beings. We all make mistakes. I have made plenty of mistakes in my career, in my personal life, but it's how you come back from those mistakes that are crucial. And that's what I want you to focus on in this answer. I want you to think about a time that you made a mistake in your career. Keep it in the career. Don't think about personal life. Don't talk about how you drink too much or how you went through a divorce or whatever else. Focus on your career and focus on a mistake that you made that you then later on also were able to rectify and correct and then improve on. So you don't want to just say, well, I really dropped the ball on this thing and it kind of screwed us. And then that's it. Talk about a mistake that you've made. Then talk about how you noticed that it was a mistake and the steps you took afterwards to try to improve it. And most importantly, what you have learned from that process and how that experience will ensure you don't make that same mistake again. That's going to be super important. And now for number 11, it's a question, but not really a question, but it is one that a lot of candidates mess up and it might surprise you. And that is the question about, do you have any questions for us? And you'll be amazed at how many candidates, when I've asked that question, they'll look at me with a blank stare and say, nope, I'm good. And I've heard from clients and the companies that we represent about candidates who've said the exact same thing, no questions. You're potentially going to change your entire career, potentially move across the country, leave one profession for another, and you have no questions about the organization that you're going to, where you're going to be spending at least 40 hours a week. That's a huge red flag for recruiters and hiring managers. And to them, it also might seem that you're uninterested or not really invested in the process. They want you to have questions. They want to be able to talk about their themselves and their organization. Who doesn't like to talk about themselves? So if you give them if you give them questions where you can actually have them come back and be the one to talk, that's a good thing. So you want to have about 3 to 5 questions lined up ahead of time. The reason why I say not just one is because there's a chance that that question might be answered naturally throughout the interview process. And you don't want to get to this point and have that question already answered and be like, oh crap, I have nothing else. Talk about things like, where do you see this position going, and what would a successful first 6 months look like for a candidate in this role? That's a great question because it shows how much you care about this position, and it also allows the hiring manager to talk about what he or she envisions for this role and what a successful start would be. And that gives you a lot of insight about the role as well, which could be really helpful to you as you go into that role, for sure. If you're talking to a recruiter, talk about the company culture. How does he or she enjoy working there, and how long have they been there? Allow him or her to give it a really good response about their experience and what they valued about the company and why they think it's been a good fit for them. And then one of my favorite things to ask or have candidates ask is, okay, we have done this interview process. Is there anything in my background or my application that gives you any kind of concern about my suitability for this position that I might be able to answer questions on or relieve any stress that you may have? So here you're literally putting them on the spot and saying, what about my background is not a good fit for this role? Because there's a great chance that the interviewer may just have overlooked that part of your background or not fully understood it. And you don't want him or her leaving the interview without a chance to answer to address that concern. So they might say, oh, we were concerned that you didn't have this experience. Well, actually, I do have this experience. I'm sorry if I didn't mention it earlier, but I actually did this, this, and this in my time in law enforcement or the military. So that's a great question where you can really highlight any concerns they may have and then address them and hopefully leave the interview in a better place than you would have been if you hadn't asked that question or addressed that. So that's number 11. Is a super important one. Come prepared with your own questions and not just stare at them blindly. That's really, really important. And then a little tip at the very end, once you've completed the interview process, of course, thank them on the way out, go home, and then send a follow-up email if you have their email address, and try to get that if you don't have it. Send an email to the person you interviewed or people you interviewed with and thank them for their time. Thank them for allowing you that opportunity. And then again, ask them if you have any questions or concerns about me or my background. I would love to answer any of them. If there's anything I can provide to you as far as references, training records, or other things in my background, please let me know. This extra step, just again, showing that you care about their time and value their time and thank them for their time, will mean a lot to them. And if you offer up references, training records, and other items, it will also jog their memory if they do need those items from you. And then they can say, yes, please provide those to me. And it just looks really good in your behalf. So there you have it. Those are the 11 most common interview questions that I have seen from my experience as a recruiter, recruiting director, and now owner of a recruiting agency. And there's obviously a lot more. Another tip I give a lot of my candidates is to take the job description that you have from the company and put it into your AI system of choice, so ChatGPT or any of the other ones, and actually ask it to come up with 10 interview questions that may be asked for that role. And you'll be amazed at how accurate some of those questions are, especially the very technical ones. They might give you great ideas. The AI might give you great ideas about what to prepare for, and then spend time really going through each answer and making sure you have a solid answer for each question. But again, if you are struggling to even get to the interview process, there's a decent chance that there's something not quite right with your resume or your LinkedIn profile, or both. So definitely go to our website, recruitingheroesllc.com, and download our Heroes Job Search Guide, which comes with a resume template, instructions on how to write a resume, LinkedIn optimization tips, and so much more. It's a great product that we used to sell, but now give away for free. So do check that out. I hope it's really helpful to you. And as we end this video, I do ask you to please like and subscribe to this channel. And as always, please stay safe. It's a crazy world out there. And I thank you all for your years of service. And I can't wait to see you in another video. Thanks, guys. Bye.